Well, first of all, I want to thank y'all for coming out. My name is Melanie Brunnett. I'm the library director here at the Troop Library. And again, it's just an honor and a privilege to have everybody here today to represent and to honor John Griffin for his service to our country. I'd like to take a few minutes and recognize some of the people from the city of Troop that are present. We have our library board president, Joe Paul McElroy, is here with us, as well as David Wilson from our library board. We have Superintendent Bird from the Troop School here, as well as the principal, David Smith, and the assistant principal, Bobby Dice. We also have one of the high school students that will be singing the national anthem for us here shortly. We also have Ruth Shepard, who is the president of the Historical Society. And we also have in the front 2 rows here family members of the Omar family that are here to represent families. And we also have 2 members of the Troop Police Department with us. We have Officer Brown and Officer Rutherford, so we thank them for coming. And also our special guest, we have Representative Louis Boomer with us today. So we just again thank everybody for coming out. And because the reason that we're here is from the research that Mr. John Lucky has done. And Mr. Lucky is sitting back there, and he is the researcher, and he did the painstaking research. That kind of started this all, and he gathered the records and filled in all the missing pieces and did a lot of hard work to get all this information out there to the public. And then Dave Berry here is, he's himself a Vietnam veteran. He's a journalist, and he's a retired editor of the Tyler Morning paper, and he's also writing a weekly column there. And he's the one that kind of brought this story to us. This article is recently in the one of the November issues of the paper, so that kind of started this out. And I just noticed that Mayor Joe Carlott just walked in, kind of snuck in on us there. So again, we just thank everybody for coming out, and now I'll hand the program over to Mr. Berry.
Okay, can you hear me all right? Bear with me a little bit. My voice is a little bit gone from a recent battle of flu or cold. Let me introduce just a few people that are in addition to those that have already been introduced. We stopped this morning to pick up a World War II veteran who was also in the Big Red One, and his name is Tom Sheffield. And unfortunately, he's in the hospital, so we weren't able to bring him, but he would have been that linked to World War II. And I hope you all remember him. He's probably going to be fine, but he's 95 years old, and he was wounded 3 times in Germany and France, and came back. He's a great guy. Jim Alexander is a good friend of mine. Where'd Jim go? Jim's back and back. Jim and I worked together at the Historic Aviation Museum restore in Big 7. But Jim came with me to help with Mr. Sheffield today, and so his job became real easy. Others that are here, already introduced Congressman Gomer. John Fitzgerald came with the Congressman, and I appreciate John. John and I have been friends a long time. Reese DeWoody is the regional director for Senator John Corwin, who's right here. And the Patriot Guard Riders, you guys are wonderful. I appreciate it. Tonight is Monroe Nicky. And Monroe, thank you for turning out such a great bunch. And if anybody gets tired of standing there, please. Appreciate you. Lenny Spivey is the director of the Texas Veterans Alliance, and Lenny's with us today. Nick Serini is the Military Order of the Purple Heart regional director, and Nick is going to be presenting the plaque later on. Jane Hummel is director of the American Freedom Museum in Boulder. If you haven't been to that museum, that's a place that you know, here with us. Our musician today is going to be Brett Wagoner. You're going to hear from him. He's going to be out at the cemetery. We're going to have a graveside wreath laying, and he will play taps for us. He's a student at Troop ISD. We've also got our singer is Taryn Blackerby, and Taryn will be up here in a second. And my good friend Hugh Adams, right here. And he was a Marine, and you'll learn that shortly. But he's served proud in Vietnam. He's going to be here. He's going to come up and lead us with the invocation and pledge of allegiance. Is it benediction or invocation?
I'm just going to pray.
You, let's come
Thank you, Dave. Let us pray. Almighty God, you have given us this good land and its founding truths for our American heritage. We ask your presence as we gather to recognize a man who's gone above and beyond the call of duty in defense of that heritage. Sergeant John Griffin's valor and his sacrifice saved the lives of his men on 2 special occasions in 1944. We honor such heroes who woven the tapestry of this great nation, and we pray that you may enable each of us to likewise live lives of valor and sacrifice every day to continue weaving the national fabric of America. We're grateful for all the people and events that you've used to mold this man who we pay homage to today. We're also grateful, Lord, for the soldiers, sailors, airmen, and Marines who gave their lives in that long conflict long ago. Give your grace and strength to their families, we pray, and their friends as they live with the loss of their loved ones and comrades. And now may your presence be with us in this hour, and may your guiding grace be upon our national leadership. God grant all in our military, especially those who serve today in harm's way, the strength and the wisdom that can come only from you. In this we come before you. We only pray in your holy name, Christ Jesus. Amen.
Well, I'm still on there. I just got so carried away with the prayer.
You all rise. Commemorate my 25th. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please remain standing, and we will now ask for Mrs. Tara Blackerly to come up and sing. Thank you so much.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we had the twilight's light gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched, glory so gallantly streaming. And the rocket's like the bombs bursting in it gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Today we're going to talk about Staff Sergeant John Vincent Griffin and his brothers and sisters. 2 farm boys, products of the blackjack community in the small town of True, who in their youth went to war and did amazing things. We're going to talk about honor and sacrifice, about leadership and bravery, the kind of courage and self-sacrifice that deserves to be recognized. John Vincent Griffin is a man whose story needs to be told, remembered, and celebrated. And that is why we're here today. When I first sat down with John Lucky to look through the research he had done on the Griffin brothers, I was amazed. John has been deaf since birth, but he had no problem communicating the importance and significance of what he had found. We talked for several hours. communicating through notes passed back and forth, until the library at the Stark Aviation Memorial Museum informed us that they were closing and needed to kick us out. I walked away knowing what my Veterans Day column would be. I'm going to ask you to come up here in a bit and help me out on a few parts of this speech. But I'd like to read a few sections of that column here today. I always start my Wednesday focal point column with a significant quotation. For this one, I chose a quote from then General Dwight D. Eisenhower. What counts is not necessarily the size of the dog in the fight, it's the size of the fight in the dog. Here's my column. I call it Unheralded Sacrifice. Jonathan and Bertie Hobart Griffin of Troop sent 2 sons to war. Only one would return. A farm family from Cherokee County's Blackjack community, they had moved with their sons Cecil and John Vincent to Troop, where the young boys went to school and worked as farm laborers alongside their father. Even before Pearl Harbor, both Griffin boys were seasoned veterans. Cecil, the oldest by 6 years, joined the Army in 1932, serving a stint in the Philippines before returning to the farm. John Vincent joined in 1939 while America was still at peace. When war was declared, Cecil rejoined the Army, requesting to serve alongside his brother. The 2 Texans would go into battle together in Company L, 16th Regiment, 1st Infantry Division. The Big Red 1, a mechanized infantry division with 17,000 troops, sailed for England August 2, 1942 on HMS Queen Mary, converted luxury liner. It was the first complete division to sail for foreign waters. After hurried training in England, the division joined the invasion of North Africa, where it endured 8 months of desert combat, all enduring infantry, repelling tank attacks, enduring artillery bombardments, and digging in to survive garrisons. John and Cecil left Africa in July 1943 to take part in the invasion of Sicily, where attacks and counterattacks would take a heavy toll. In Sicily, PFC John Griffin was recognized for gallantry in action with these words.
John B. Griffin, service number 6958525, private first class infantry, for gallantry in action. When his company was being fiercely counterattacked by the enemy, Private Griffin seized an automatic rifle and succeeded in the face of intense enemy fire in destroying a machine gun nest. His courageous action contributed materially to his company's success in repelling the counterattack.
That was his first Silver Star. D-Day, June 6, 1944, found PFC John Vincent Griffin huddled with his squad in the belly of a landing craft, part of the first wave to hit Omaha Beach. Nearby, in another boat, Staff Sergeant Cecil Griffin targeted the same stretch of sand labeled Fox Red. From atop the fortified cliff, German defenders poured murderous fire onto the beach. After advancing through that killing field, Company L was pinned down at the base of the cliff. John Vincent Griffin volunteered to go forward with 2 other men and cut a gap in the barbed wire. Here's what the official records tell us about what happened next.
Before I read the comments in regards to this man's medal, would you please just focus for a moment, forget about your agenda for today and your day timer and what's for supper and the children and things. This is a very real man, shed blood, that you and I can stand here today. Please listen carefully, and as much as possible, especially we veterans, it's easy for us to travel back 40 plus years. But try to put yourself on that seashore, climbing up that sand, knowing that death is certain. The Distinguished Service Cross, Griffin, John V. Attention to orders. Headquarters, 1st United States Army General Orders, number 31, July 1, 1944. Citation: the President of the United States takes pleasure in presenting the Distinguished Service Cross to John B. Griffin, service number 6958525, private first class U.S. Army, for extraordinary heroism in connection with military operations against an armed enemy while serving with Company L, 3rd Battalion, 16th Infantry Regiment, 1st Infantry Division, Big Red 1, in action against enemy forces on 6 June 1944 in France. While gunned rather while his company was pinned down on the beach due to the heavy enemy fire, machine gun and artillery fire, Private First Class Griffin with 2 other men volunteered to open a gap in the barbed wire. Under intense fire, he cut his way through the wire and then picked his way through a minefield, marking a path for his company to follow and reach the base of a hill. Have you envisioned any of that yet in your mind? That you would volunteer to leave your place of security and relatively safety, and now you're going to charge up there and cut the Constantine wire under enemy fire. From this point, he laid accurate rifle fire upon the enemy placements, forcing them to cease firing long enough to prevent part of his company to move through the gap in the wire in the minefield and join him at the base of the hill. While this group directed frontal fire on the enemy, Private First Class Griffin moved out to the flank and from an exposed position directed his accurate fire against the enemy. Again, the enemy was forced to cease firing long enough to permit the men who had been delivering the frontal fire to advance and successfully assault the enemy positions. When later in the day, the enemy counterattacked, Private First Class John Griffin worked his way around the enemy and engaged them from the flank. Despite intense enemy fire to dislodge him, Private First Class Griffin remained at his exposed position until the enemy counterattack was beaten off. Private First Class Griffin's intrepid actions, personal bravery, and zealous devotion to duty exemplify the highest traditions of the military forces of the United States of America and reflect great credit upon himself, the 1st Infantry Division of the United States Army. Hometown, Troop, Texas.
For his extraordinary heroism on D-Day, he received the Distinguished Service Cross, second only to the Medal of Honor. It was pinned on his chest by none other than General Dwight D. Eisenhower. Once the beachhead was secured, Ike and General Omar Bradley personally decorated 24 men in the Big Red One, pinning medals first on the chest of a brigadier general, and lastly on the rumpled field jacket of the lowly Private First Class from Troop. Of that group, 3 would die before the war's end. The first to fall would be John Vincent Griffin. 2 months after D-Day, on August 6, 1944, Griffin, now a staff sergeant, suffered multiple wounds in a battle near Mayenne, France. He was evacuated to a field hospital and died the next day. For gallantry in action, he received his 2nd Silver Star with an oblique cluster and a 3rd Purple Heart awarded posthumously.
Headquarters, U.S. Infantry Division, 6 December 1944. Award of Oak Leaf Cluster to Silver Star, posthumous. In addition to the Silver Star previously awarded, a Bronze Leaf Star and Cluster for gallantry in action is posthumously awarded the following named enlisted man: John V. Griffin, service number 6958525, Staff Sergeant, Company L, 16th Infantry, for gallantry in action in Mayenne, France, 6 August 1944. Residence at enlistment, Troop, Texas. Next of kin, Mrs. Bertie Griffin, mother, Route 4, Troop, Texas.
John Griffin was buried in the temporary military cemetery near the village of Macomb, one of 4,543 Americans interred there. He was engraved number 147, row number 8, plot B through BE. His grave was marked with a wooden stake and his military serial number. His brother Cecil Griffin moved on with the battered veterans of Company L, now bolstered by a heavy flow of replacements. They would fight for another year until Germany's final surrender. For his actions on D-Day, Cecil received a Silver Star. He came home with wounds, wearing a Purple Heart with an oak leaf cluster for valor attached. Another soldier who would have been here with us today, except he was in the hospital, marched and fought nearby. That was Sergeant Tom Sheffield, who served in the Big Red 1 2nd Battalion. He would have been one of our honored guests here. Tom served until the end of the war and was wounded 3 times, once in the Battle of Aachen, a 2nd time when the division crossed into Germany, and a 3rd time at Altenau, Germany, just before the end of the war. In 1947, the military began exhuming soldiers from temporary cemeteries across France and sending them back to America, or to the larger Normandy American Cemetery above the assault beaches. Jonathan and Bertie Griffin wanted their son's body to come home, but it would take 3 long years before John Vincent Griffin's remains were exhumed. and returned to Texas. His casket, escorted by a soldier in uniform, arrived at the troop train station June 18, 1948, 3 years after the war ended. Today he rests in Troops Bradford Cemetery near the grave of his parents, with a Distinguished Service Cross, 2 silver stars with oak leaf cluster, 3 Purple Hearts, a Presidential Unit citation, and campaign ribbons from the Algerian, French Moroccan, Tunisian, Sicilian, and Normandy campaigns. He is arguably one of the most decorated soldiers from Smith County in the Second World War. Few remain to celebrate this little-known hero. His parents died in the 70s. His brother Cecil survived the war and moved to Oregon, but he died in 1987. Possibly the last living relatives who knew John Vincent and Cecil Griffin are here in this room today. His first cousins, Claude O'Barr, lives with his wife Lee and Tyler. Lee always called him Vincent, so he was very nice name. She and Claude had been married just 3 weeks when the casket arrived at the station. So many people showed up at his funeral, she said, and Claude remembered a large crowd gathering at the family home afterward. Mrs. Marie O'Barr Carter, another cousin, said she was just too young to remember much about that day, more than 67 years ago. Memories fade, people move on, and the stories are forgotten. John Vincent Griffin's name is listed with 41 others who gave all on the War Memorial at Troop City Hall. But finding someone who knows his story is difficult. That's why what John Lucky did and what we're doing here today is important. It's important to know that bravery and honor are not products of higher education, of military pedigree, or classes on leadership. Bravery, that spark that urges a man or woman forward into danger, can be spawned in a dozen mysterious ways. It may come from a father's teaching, or a mother's love, from the steady guidance of a friend, or the special attention of a teacher. On the battlefield, it's often simply a matter of taking care of your buddy and knowing that he's got your back as well. Honor is not a big city trait. It can come from small towns like Farmersville that spawned Audie Murphy, from the ranches around Odessa that hold Chris Lyle, from the flat prairie of Russell, Kansas, my hometown, that produced Bob Dole. Or it can rise from the red dirt fields of Blackjack and Troop that brought us the Griffin brothers. I visited John Griffin's grave last November and again last week. The small flag I planted next to his marker to honor him in death pales in significance to the Distinguished Service Cross I pinned on his chest while he lived. But the message of both was simple and sincere. John Vincent Griffin, your bravery was extraordinary, and your sacrifice will not be forgotten. I hope Troop never forgets this amazing man. My voice is still with us.
Yeah, you're doing great.
Okay. I want to bring we got a few presentations to present. First, let me bring John Lucky. John, can you come up? John is going to present his research to Mel into the library. Like I say, John's been there since first, so let me kind of make the presentation that everyone up here. And John did a ton of work, and he wanted to make sure that this research is somewhere where it can always be available to anyone who wants to know the story. So Melody's going to make this part of the exhibit here at the library.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, John. Nick's reading. Nick is the local head of the Purple Heart, Order of the Purple Heart. Military Order of the Purple Heart. And he's got another presentation.
This is just a simple plaque to honor his sacrifice, the wounds. It says John Vincent Griffin, Staff Sergeant, United States Army, 1920-1944, World War II. That's
Thank you so much.
You and Adams presented the Distinguished Service Cross plaque. And then Melody next to you. Or actually, no, this goes to Stuart Bird. This is for Stuart Bird. We want to bring Stuart Bird, Stuart Superintendent of Troop ISD, and we wanted something to to recognize an alumnus.
This plaque from a good friend of ours, Don Allen, the Vietnam Traveling Wall in Bullard. He made this plaque, wishes he could be here. He's out of state at present. It is given to the school, and they can hang it appropriately in the school. So it's with a pleasure, sir, that we give this to Troop ISD.
Thank you
Very much.
Reese Lee is with the regional offices of Senator John Cordy.
This is a letter from Senator Cornyn commemorating Mr. Griffin and his service to this country.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Dr. Louis, would you like to come up and make a presentation? This is Congressman Weaver.
Okay,
Yes.
I was a little embarrassed to read about somebody that was as selfless and great as John Vincent Griffin, and I hadn't heard of him before. That was embarrassing. And for that reason, I know I personally and all of us owe a debt of gratitude to Mr. Lucky. And Mr. Lucky, not only did you do fantastic research, you also had the good wisdom to get the information into the hands of somebody that would do something with it. Thank you for your work, and then for passing that on now to the library, but especially to David. If that had not been done, I don't know that I would have ever read John Vincent Griffin. The man was a hero. Now, I served in the United States Army 4 years, 78 to 82, never saw combat. But I know there are a lot of people here that have, and very grateful to them. And on a personal note, when you're being trained, one of the elements of training, especially for infantry, you end up numerous times walking into an ambush. And those of you that have been trained know if a proper ambush is laid down, the field of fire are overlapping, and there's no way to survive. If it's laid down properly, you have one chance. And that only chance is if you turn, as you know, as you turn and run into where the fire is coming from. It's your only chance of survival if the ambush is properly laid down, right guys? Now, I got to where through training I could do that. But I knew there weren't real bullets. And I always had in my mind all these years, I wonder if in combat I would have the training and the courage to turn and run into the fire as fast as I could. I don't know. But in reading about John Vincent Griffin, there's no question. This man not only had the training, he had the courage to do whatever it took. And a lot of people, I know Mr. Lucky and Dave Berry, so many know from World War II reading, but so many people have wondered, why did they have all those big pieces of metal sticking up out there on the beaches? And why did they have to go so far on the beaches? Because the truth is, if they'd gone at high tide, there was very little beach there. They could have just gone right on up. Except the Germans knew that. And that's why they put all of those things out there. They expected Americans or the Allies to try to come at high tide, so there wouldn't be a killing field on the beaches. They'd be right there at the end of the beach. And that's why those who were planning D-Day planned it as they did. They knew with all of the metal out there, the landing craft would be sunk. Most of our people loaded down with ammunition and weapons and whatnot, they would drown. They would never make it to shore. And that's why the decision was made to launch at low tide, even though it meant, for some of them, hundreds of yards of beach and exposed area. Now you can hear the reading of the information in the Distinguished Service Medal. But if you put yourself as best you can back there on that beach, and you've got some cover from those things that would have taken out the ship, to volunteer to go up and cut through the barbed wire, you know you're going to be exposed. He did that knowingly. Omar Bradley, second highest in command during World War II, he said that courage is not running into battle failing to understand the danger. It's understanding the danger and going ahead. Well, Vincent Griffin understood the danger and he went ahead. And so he was exposed there. And if you know about laying out fields of fire, setting up bunkers as the Germans did, and setting up minefields like he went through, you set up a minefield in an area such that a bunker you set up can shoot people because you know they can't go through quickly or a bunch of them will be killed. They're going to be coming through on their belly with their knives poking. And we got better stuff now to pick up the mines, but just probing the dirt in front of you, trying not to, you hit something metal, then you tag it and you go around. It's a slow process and you're doing it under fire. He did it under fire. And then he makes it through. Okay, he's finally got some cover. And then he volunteers to go around to the flank where he was not covered and give supporting fire so the other people could advance and take out the bunker. I mean, amazing man of courage. And went to school right here. Right here. So I am so thrilled that the research was done. It was placed in the hands of Dave Berry where he brought attention to it. And then, you know, in deciding what would be nice to present, I thought a flag flown over the U.S. Capitol on the flagpole. I say that because a former congressman once told me before 9/11, when you took off from Reagan Airport, a plane, the pattern would normally have you fly right over the top of the Capitol. They don't do that now, but he said, so back then, if he didn't have time to get a flag flown on the flagpole, he would just throw it in his briefcase, and after they flew over the top of the Capitol, he'd certify it flew over the Capitol that day. But this one actually flew on the flagpole in honor of Mr. Griffin. But I thought, even though immediate family is not here, if we presented it to the library, seems like flags draw people's attention. And if somebody, we can draw people's attention and walk over, look at the flag, what's all that about, then they will read about this extraordinary man. Now, I still see signs time to time, protests around the Capitol and other places that say war never brought peace. And my thought is, that poor person never had a good history teacher. Because there will always be wars, rumors of war. Why? Because there are evil people in the world. And so you have two choices in the face of evil. You can either give in and become their slave, or you can fight. Either way, whether you're a slave to them or you prevail, those are the two ways of getting peace in this world. And that's why back in the 1800s, philosopher John Stuart Mill wrote these words: war is an ugly thing, but not the ugliest of things. The decayed and degraded state of moral and patriotic feeling, which thinks that nothing is worth war, is much worse. The person who has nothing for which he's willing to fight, nothing which is more important than his own personal safety, is a miserable creature and has no chance of being free unless made and kept so by men in their exertions for better than himself. Well, we're here honoring one of those men who is better than most others. He knew that this was worth the fight. So what we're doing today also is an answer to the prayer that George Washington wrote at the end of his resignation in 1783 as the commander of our revolutionary military. He said, and I don't know how many people put a prayer at the end of your resignation, but I haven't noticed a whole lot of those, but Washington did, and he sent it to all 13 governors and then submitted it in Annapolis where the Continental Congress had gathered. But he said, I now make it my earnest prayer that God would have you in the state over which you preside in his holy protection, and that he would incline the hearts of the citizens, and this is an important part, to entertain a brotherly affection and love for one another, for their fellow citizens of the United States, and particularly for their brethren who have served in the field. That's what all of us are doing today. And I thank you for that. And Dave, I thank you for making this happen. Not only thank you for making the library a repository and making this all possible today here where we are. So if you wouldn't mind, hopefully these stars on the Navy back will draw some attention. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
And the certificate that accompanies it hopefully will draw some attention. On behalf of a grateful district, state, and nation, this flag, which was flown over the United States Capitol in Washington, D.C., is hereby presented in honor of United States hero John Vincent Griffin, Staff Sergeant, Company L, 16th Infantry Regiment, 1st Infantry Division, in grateful tribute to his courageous and selfless service to the United States of America as a member of the United States Army during World War II. With heartfelt gratitude for his commitment to the protection of and service to this great nation, in tribute to his courageous life, which was devoted to the proposition that a person devoted to the protection of others made his country safer for his family as well as the generations to follow, while providing further proof of the ageless truth that greater love hath no one than this, that a man lay down his life for his friends. That in being willing to do so, he demonstrated he was indeed one of those rare but better men who keep us free, and in further celebration of his life dedicated to making the world safer for democracy for having served in the United States Armed Forces. So, thank you, Melanie. Thank you. Very
I'll put up a couple thank yous, and then we'll say that this is over, and we'll let you have some refreshments. I want to thank the Cemetery Association members who are here, and the family. I want to make sure you knew this, that they have committed themselves to repairing the grave of Roberta Hobart and Griffin. Let's just talk a little bit, and they're going to fix that. And then also Historical Society that's provided the refreshments. Library Association for the use of the building. Melanie, thank you so much for working with me on this. Also want to thank Brookshire Grocery Company, which has flown 11 groups of World War II veterans and Korean War veterans to Washington to see the World War II Memorial in the Monuments. That's 330 men and women they've taken. They provided the wreath, and so that's their donation today. I believe their store manager, Akiva Carter, here today. Thank you for being here today. I think Brookshire's sent me a Jewel of the Nile, Jewel of the Mall, about the World War II Memorial for the library. And Mr. Lucky has provided about 4 or 5 books on World War II. So you've got quite a collection to make an exhibit with. I need to announce one more thing. We're going to do a graveside wreath laying. So anyway, thank you for coming, and we'll see you out on Cemetery.
the conclusion of our ceremony. Again, our honor for John Griffin, his dedication to America. Thank y'all so much. Hoorah, hoorah.